Patty has joined us, so I think we can get started now.
Be careful what you wish for, Ann.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting together, the oldest Lions Club in the world. And would you go over the Zoom procedures for us real quick, Mark?
Yeah, just real quickly, if you're not speaking, we ask that you mute yourself, because often sometimes people forget to mute themselves, and there's something going on in the background. It really interferes with our speakers. So that's really the only thing, is just if you're not speaking, please just mute yourself. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I have asked Robert Watson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag. So if you will stand up, if you can, and let's get started.
You all stand, please.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Yee-haw.
Great. Okay, do we have any guests today?
I think I qualify. Hi, everybody. I'm Max.
Hi, Max.
Good to see you,
We'll
Max.
give you a formal introduction later, Max.
Okay. We have one birthday this week, Lamar Urbanetsky. His birthday is on the 21st. So let's wish him a happy birthday. Someday we're gonna all get together. We're gonna have lots of cake and things. Okay, we've got a couple of announcements and some reports. And I got an email from Fred. I can't read my writing.
Jenga?
No,
Oh, Greg. Do.
Greg. I said that's a G, not an X. Oh gosh, that's embarrassing. Anyway, so you should have it in your mailbox, an update about the plastic collection and just some more information about that. And we're moving right along. We're really getting up there. I've taken about 60 pounds over myself. So we're really moving along. So let's just keep it up. Keep up the good work. Okay, Jim, are you here to tell us about the ticket sales at McBride's?
I don't see Jim.
I don't see Jim either. Tommy?
Tommy?
Hang on just a second. I think I'm not mute. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We had a very successful turnout. We beat the high bar set by Ann and her group by $2.73. But we sold $1,050 something worth of tickets. Jim was there. JP Kirksey did an outstanding job of tripping them, and when they fell, then Sam Ruse caught them, and I picked their pocket. So we had a good time, and McBride's was very cooperative and helpful with it. It was a fun event, and Robertson bought us lunch, and so we did all right. Did fine, had a good time.
Great.
Done.
Patty, did you want to say something? No. Oh, no. Okay. All right then. Ann, would you give us an update on the sporting clay event?
I will. Thank you to everyone who has volunteered to help tomorrow. And I have seen the chat messages from Siva and Alan Ford. I will forward the message I sent to all the volunteers last night. If you plan to be there Friday and you did not get in touch with me, I didn't send you an email. So if you have not gotten the email from me, please text me or send me something in the chat and I will forward it to you. It has all of the details. Also, we're trying to get everybody their t-shirt to wear tomorrow. And if you don't get it today, then we'll give it to you when you get there tomorrow, and you can hopefully put it on. We're going to meet. I want to try to have most everybody there around 8:30. There is an orientation for the people who will work at the stations at 9 a.m. And in the materials I sent last night, I gave you all the information about what's going on tomorrow. I have an assignment list. And so those of you that I hadn't heard from until today, your assignment is going to be working at a station, if that's possible. We are meeting out there this afternoon by 4:30 to set up the canopies. And if you are able-bodied and able to help, that would be super. Bring your own hammer and work gloves. We've got to put up the canopies. We've ended up, JP put in there how many teams. We have 18 and a half, so we really have 19 teams. Tommy worked out the schedule, and so we are going to have 10 on one field and 9 on the other. We do have one need still. The Dunkin' Donuts in Dripping Springs is donating like 100 and something donuts and coffee, and we need someone to pick it up. And I hate to ask anybody to go all the way out there. I was hoping that I might get in touch with Sam Hammett's son, but Sam is out of the country. His son is coming, but I cannot reach his son. So if anybody is willing to make the trek out to Dripping Springs to pick up the donuts, please let me know. Let's see, what else what questions do you have? Robert.
I'll go out to Dripping Springs and pick them up. I'll get with you after the meeting and get the details.
Okay, they'll be ready by 8 a.m.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Robert. Okay, anybody else have a question? Yes. Well, just please read the email. I'm going to send everybody a map today that will have the layout of the course. And so you can, when you see what your assignment is and we give you your station that you're going to work at, you'll know where it is. But everything is coming together. I apologize to our speaker, but I'm going to have to sign off early because I've got to go pick up quite a lot of things and get out there around 4 o'clock. So anyway, if you have any questions or you need to reach me, please contact me on my cell phone. And my number is 512-497-2982. And it is in the materials that I sent you last night. So I hope to see some of you out there this afternoon, and then I'll see the others tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. John Niefler is going to tell us a little bit about the field trip to Community First. Give us a report on that.
Yes, I'll be happy to do that. Last week's program was a presentation by Alan Graham, the founder of Community First Village. And the Thursday Zoom meeting was followed by a Saturday afternoon tour, a personal tour of the site guided by Alan. A dozen or so Lions and friends attended the hour-plus long visit, leading to an understanding not only of the housing that is provided, but also the resident services for employment and education and training, healthcare, and socializing. Mac Ragsdale has photos of those of us who were in attendance, and that will be included in the website and the next club report to the district. Knowing that our, sorry about that, knowing that our program today was the Other Ones Foundation Alan was very complimentary of Max Moscow, of his work, and they have cooperated frequently in their common interest of serving the homeless population among us. It was a plus experience for all of us, and I think a success all the way around. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. Well, I'm looking, Mac, I'm looking for our speaker and I don't see our speaker anywhere.
He's here.
I'm here. I'm hiding.
Oh,
I mean, I'm not really hiding. There's just a lot of people.
oh, okay, okay. Well, it's always good when the speaker comes and kind of scary when they don't show up. So, Mac,
It's called a disaster.
Would you introduce our speaker?
I'd be glad to. Our speaker today will be telling us about Camp Esperanza. It's a state-sanctioned homeless encampment in Southeast Austin, and the work being done there by the Other Ones Foundation, TOOF. Max Moscow is development coordinator and a spokesman for TOOF's work at the Esperanza Community, which is uniquely homegrown and notably different from Community First Village, which we heard about last week. Max is originally from Portland, Oregon, spent his early adult years touring as a musician and working in the restaurant industry. He was homeless on and off during this time, but he eventually turned things around for himself with support from friends and family. After that experience, he felt called upon to help others who didn't have the privilege and support that he did. And that led him to working with TOOF in 2018 to help find creative solutions to homelessness. So lines and guests, I'm pleased to introduce Max Moscow with the Other Ones Foundation. Max.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that intro, Mac, and thank you to everybody for having me and taking some time out of your day to discuss this important issue. I'm really glad to hear that y'all have already been talking to Alan and MLF. We all kind of refer to MLF as like our older brothers and sisters as an organization. They have mentored us and helped us get to where we're at over the past several years through collaboration and you know, just generally kind of showing us the ropes as we go forward. So I think because I don't know, I mean, we've been in the news, the site that we work at has been in the news, so I don't know what everybody knows. So I'm gonna try to keep it pretty brief and really open up questions and let y'all kind of guide the conversation. As Max said, I was homeless on and off in my early 20s. And because of, you know, after I kind of got out of that and addressed the mental health and substance use issues that were the kind of keeping me from keeping a roof over my head, I started to wonder to myself, like, why did that work out so easily for me? And it wasn't easy. It was a difficult time and I'm very proud of what I did, but like, I pretty much kind of decided that I was ready to stop being homeless and then got a job and moved in now. And that is not necessarily the story for a lot of the people that the Other Ones Foundation works with. And so I started asking myself, why did that turn out like that for me, and what's different about me than a lot of the people that I see who are trying to elevate themselves out of poverty and not able to. And I, you know, kind of quickly understood that it's because of the family that I was born into and the support systems that I was able to access. And so what attracted me to working with the Other Ones Foundation is that the vision that TOOF has is that every person, no matter where they're from, what they look like, what they've done in their life, every single person deserves shelter, opportunity, and support. And those are the three things that are the foundations of everything that we do. So that being said, I'll I'm gonna share my screen and just kind of go over a really brief history of the Other Ones Foundation and a brief history of the Esperanza Community, and kind of tell the story of how those two things met and where we're going from there. So, can everybody see my screen and hear me and we're all good? Okay, cool.
Yes, I see your screen.
I see some head nods. So the Other Ones Foundation was founded in 2017. And the first thing that we did was go out into encampments and ask people basically, why are you still here? Like, what's wrong with the system? You know, we're dumping all of this taxpayer money and there's a million nonprofits and there's all these programs. What's not working? We've hired consultants and tons of scientists and data analysts to come in, and they're not, the stuff that they're suggesting doesn't seem to be working. So we figured that we should go straight to the source, into encampments, and ask people who are currently homeless, why are you still homeless? What of all of these things that's being offered, why isn't it working for you? And so the two things that we heard, the first one is pretty obvious. They were like, there's not enough housing. You know, we're all on like 5 different housing wait lists and they're 1 million people long and we're not getting into housing. So that was not a shock to any of us. But the second thing that we heard most often that was kind of interesting to us was people felt very disempowered and kind of at a loss at what to do during the day. People stay in homeless shelters, and oftentimes the homeless shelters ask you to leave at like 8 in the morning and then come back at 5 p.m. to come in and stay for the night. And during the day, because of those tight hours, people didn't feel like that they had any meaningful activity that they could engage in, because all that they were worried about doing was making sure that they got back to the shelter in time to get a bed for that night. And so that kind of hearing that gave way to our first program, which is the Workforce First program. We launched that in 2018, and it's a work program where people experiencing homelessness go into parks and clean parks, and we pay them a living wage of $15 an hour and offer them case management. And so since 2018, when we launched that program, we've seen 90 people move through that program and into stable housing. And that was our bread and butter for many years until COVID hit in 2020, and we started our second program, which is called the Mobile Hygiene Clinic. And that's a fleet of, it started out as just one shower trailer that goes around to homeless encampments and offers people showers and restrooms and basic hygiene access. So like, you know, razors, shampoo, etc. And that also employs the Workforce First program. So each shower trailer is run and staffed by people experiencing homelessness. Again, being paid $15 an hour and offered case management. So those were our kind of the things that we set out doing, was more like work opportunity and engaging with the homeless community. But in August of 2020, we up until then, we had been based out of the back of a church in Oak Hill. And in August of 2020, that lease expired and we needed a new place. And the state-sanctioned homeless encampment had been rolling along for a year with no management. And it was essentially kind of a humanitarian crisis. So we decided that at this point, we were going to reach out to the state of Texas and offer to go out there and be the service coordinators on site. So we got out there, and upon our arrival, we did the same thing that we did right when we founded back in 2017. So at that time, when we arrived in August of 2020, there was about 100 people living out there, and we interviewed 70 of those 100 people. And asked them, what do you want? Like, what do you need out here? Why are you still here? And how can we help you get from here into a better place? And we got a lot of really, really robust information from this. And from there, immediately started offering the programs that we already had, so work opportunities, hygiene access. We've built like a day shelter complex where people can receive mail and have internet access. We've brought out full meal service for 2 days a week and are working to scale that to a third day a week. And the biggest thing going forward that we realized right when we got there was that it was an extremely dangerous situation to have all of these people living out in this camp, kind of unattended. And so we brought in a medical clinic, free medical clinic 2 days a week. We brought in free mental health care 3 days a week. And then the thing that's going to tie all of this together is to get people out of tents and into some kind of physical structure where they're out of the elements and they can get some traction and some stability in their life and take advantage of all of these resources and then move off the site and into stable housing. The easiest way to kind of put it is when you're living in a tent and you're seeking help through case management or any social service, you're always taking one step forward and 2 steps back. And a really, really good poignant example of that is like trying to get vital documents. A lot of people who are experiencing homelessness don't have any kind of birth certificate, ID, or anything like that. And that's sort of like this linchpin through which they can start getting all these other things that they need, like bank accounts and a job and a house. You know, it's hard to do anything with no ID. And a lot of times when people will finally get this ID, there'll be some big flash flood while they're out living in the woods, and it'll flood away all their stuff. And now they're just starting over again. And so the idea behind us trying to build a shelter complex at the Esperanza Community is to get people into some structures where they're going to be able to get out of the elements and out of this constant state of crisis and into some stability where they can get some traction and move forward. So we got there in August. We realized that we needed to start creating some structures for these people. And that meant that we had to get our hands on a lease from the state of Texas for this land. I don't know if any of y'all have a lot of experience working with government, but it took us a year to get that lease. But we finally signed it just this last month. We finally got the lease to come on as the operators of the site. And then looking forward a little bit, on the 27th of this month, we will break ground to start installing infrastructure and building out permanent structures on this site. So I want to go back a little bit on the history. This is what the site looked like when we got here. I think this was taken maybe a week or two after we had arrived on site. So it's just a giant asphalt parking lot that was originally owned by the Texas Department of Transportation, where they put beat up trucks. It's a vehicle service depot formerly. And so in November of 2019, the state opened it up as a sanctioned homeless encampment and said, people should go out here and we will then organize services to be brought out to you. But as that was happening and the services were being organized, COVID hit, and the people who were originally going to go out there and offer services backed out because of COVID. And then that's when it starts to get kind of like this humanitarian crisis, where really all that's out there is a bunch of people that are really, really high needs and really vulnerable, and then very limited water, very limited electricity, only enough electricity for about 10% of the people out there. And some porta potties, and that was all that was there when we arrived. So we got there and started offering the services that I've already mentioned, and then also started building these temporary shelters that you see here. So these are actually manufactured by IKEA, and they're super, super cheap. And they go up in about 3 hours with a team of 4 people. So we immediately built 30 of these to just put in people who were super high risk people who are elderly, people who have really, really bad mental health issues or really, really bad physical health issues, who we were pretty sure that if we didn't get these up and get people in here, that these individuals would not survive the next couple of weeks or months. So we've installed these and are using these as temporary shelters for individuals that are deemed like highly vulnerable. But these are not really like the long-term solution. The structure that we're going to use on an ongoing basis looks a little bit more like this. It's a little bit more robust. This is my friend Jimbo here, who was the first one to move into one of these. And these are air conditioned, they lock, and they have some power. So it's not a home in the Hamptons, but it is a safe and dignified place where people can get inside of, get out of the elements, get out of this constant crisis of having your stuff stolen and flooded away and burnt, you know. And so the idea of where we're going, I will show you now. This is the site plan for the build out of what we're doing. You guys can all see y'all can see my cursor, right? So if I'm like pointing towards something, you know what I'm talking about. Good. Okay, great. I made it really big before so that would hopefully help. So the site right now, just to kind of give you an idea from the pictures that you've seen, that row of emergency shelters is back here. And then the first photo with all the tents was sort of looking down this direction. So right now where I'm sliding my mouse through is just covered in like hundreds of tents and stuff. And we're actually in the process right now of moving a bunch of those people off site so that we can start laying infrastructure and building the first neighborhood. So if you look here, there's these 4 structures right here that have the solar panels on them, and those are the center of 4 neighborhoods. So this complex is going to be divided up into 4 neighborhoods of 50 shelter units, each shelter unit able to hold 1 or 2 people, depending on if people want to shack up with a partner or a friend. And then in the center is just kind of some community commons areas with some basic kitchen stuff, showers and restrooms. And so once we're done with construction, the site will be able to hold between 200 and 300 people at any time and offer all of those people case management, opportunity to work, healthcare, laundry, restrooms, and mental health care, and just like common spaces for people to kind of build community and start getting back in the mindset of being a good neighbor and being a part of a community and a society again, because the folks that we work with have been marginalized and left and forgotten for so long that's a big component of this, right? We can't just be putting people into a house and then saying, okay, well, good luck, because there's years of trauma from living on the streets associated with the homelessness that most of these individuals are dealing with. So that's kind of like a brief history of TOOF and what we did and how we ended up at the Esperanza Community and ended up being the operators of this site. I'm just really quick. I have like a 3-minute video that kind of goes into a little bit more detail. And I think it's really important also that y'all see this, because it shows the site and it shows the people who stay out there and lets them weigh in on it. So I'm just going to hit play, and then after that, I'll just open up to questions, I think, if that's amenable to everybody. Let's see.
I built this house with nothing. No tape measure, no saw. This is my living area. Well, my living room. This is my kitchen area. And that, of course, is my pit. It's covered with tarp, first of all, to keep the heat in and the heat out. Most of you might get that. But if you don't, I'm sorry. Anyway, I built a pit. I built everything. And you think, well, it's just a tent. Well, guess what? It is just a tent. But it's 10 by 10. Now I got a twin bed in there, and I got a bed for my dog. And she loves me, and I love this place, and I feel very grateful and satisfied.
There's 2 movements around homelessness: those that resist and resent, and those that are willing to show up and make a difference. So first choice is, which camp do you want to be in?
There is a movement to get people off of the streets. There's a movement to get people out from under bridges. There's a movement to get people off of street corners, off of benches, and into a place where they can have a dignified life. I'd never been homeless before, so I didn't know what to expect.
I quit my job for Jason's help, and that's how we ended up homeless.
We're not cut out for this. The Other Ones Foundation is a grassroots homelessness service organization that focuses on extremely low barrier work opportunities, shelter, support, humanitarian aid, and case management services for our brothers and sisters experiencing homelessness.
We are at the Esperanza Community in Austin, Texas. Esperanza is a good camp of a good community of homeless people that are trying to become productive citizens of the society.
We're dealing with people whose lives have taken an unfortunate turn. And thanks to the Other Ones Foundation, we're starting to build an environment that is humane.
They listen. They listen hard. They're out there bent on listening.
They got me a caseworker who was very proactive in helping me get all the paperwork and everything done in order to get to Community First Village.
That's the best thing about Camp Esperanza and TOOF and the spirit of everything that's happening right now. If you want to help, help. If you don't want to help, next.
We have shown up every day for people experiencing homelessness. We've served them through our food trucks. And for the last 5.5 years, we've had Community First Village. We're grateful to have partners like TOOF who really love and care for our neighbors.
This is the first time in human history something like this has been attempted. Wouldn't it be something if there was an official way to know that if everything collapsed, you at least have a meal and be out of the weather, so you can get back on your own? I ain't got no worries, you know. I'm good. I got my life back. We're not really bad people. We just have in a bad situation that we're trying to get out of. You're interested in something other than nothing and being depressed and sad because we're in this condition. Gotta look up. If we can look up, we can get up. And I know we can do it.
So what we're doing is embarking on a $5.4 million transformative fundraising campaign to make this site a reality and to offer the supportive services that we need to get people off the streets, into the camp, out of the camp, into housing. I am super excited to welcome our community into this campaign so that we can resource this project with what we need to get this done.
People want to judge the homeless as addicts and so forth, and there are. But there's many, many reasons why we're out here. Each one of us have an individual story, and it should be heard individually. So if you have a heart, listen to that.
So that's really the kind of the gist of where we're at out there and where we're going. And I know we have about 20 minutes left, I think. So I'm open to questions, or I can go like more in depth into what we're doing out there. I just never know. I'm so in it all the time that I never know how granular people want me to get, you know? So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to either just shout them out or put them in the.
Yeah. My question is, how many homeless people are there in Austin right now?
What a question. There's a lot of different answers depending on who you ask. The census found just over 5,000 last year. The census over a couple of days found just over 5,000 unsheltered people in Austin. We know that over the course of a year, over 7,000 people seek services. So all homeless service providers in Austin use the same database to like put people in as they come to them, and it's called HMIS. And so in 2020, 7,000 people were entered into HMIS. And we also know that a lot of people don't seek services. Right. So, and that's there's a variety of reasons there. And I think I will say the reason that we are doing this shelter complex the way that we're doing it with these individual structures is because a lot of people are like, oh, people want to be homeless. They don't want to seek help. They don't want to go into shelters. They don't want to access services. And that reason is kind of, the reason that people don't want to do it is because homeless shelters are terrible places. It is like awful staying in a homeless shelter. I've done it and it is the worst. And it didn't help me at all. It basically put me into a really small environment with a lot of people with really big problems. And it's just like a blender of like trauma. And so giving people these individual shelter units where they're have some autonomy and some privacy. When we did our surveys at the beginning of our time at Esperanza, only 10% of people said that they would go to a shelter, but 97% of people said that they would move into one of these shelter units today. And so people who are, so people, when people are like, oh, people want to be homeless, they don't want to access services. It's just that they don't want to access poorly delivered services. And so we're trying to re-envision a way to offer services that people will opt into. That's not even the question you asked me, but I don't know how I got there. Anyways, well, go ahead.
Gaylord Armstrong here, Max. I simply wanted to tell you how informative your presentation is and how helpful the video, and it helps us understand an awful lot more about the benefit of programs. We may simply see the headlines about what the Congress is doing and the administration is supporting, such as this American Rescue Plan Act, that, as I understand it, that's actually the source of the federal funds that are going to communities all over the country, and that's where the 110 million came from for the county to disperse to obviously whether it's Other Ones Foundation or Mobile Homes and Fishes. But how is that program being administered? You know, money just doesn't show up for you to build or buy these individual units and to try to provide the services, job seeking. What kind of oversight is there from the county or coordination? And I've learned a lot about it from Ann Howard, who's head of ECHO, as you know, and now county commissioner. But I'm just curious how it's administered.
Yeah, so I can speak to some of that. Some of that's a little bit above my pay grade, specifically about the ARPA fund. So yes, they just the county, man, it's been a long week. I guess that was on Tuesday. They voted to earmark, I think it's about 110 million of those ARPA funds. And I never in my life thought that I would think that $3 million wasn't that much money, but they gave TOOF $3 million of it, which to me, like, seems like a ton of money, and we're really excited about it. But it was just funny hearing it out of 110 and the context, me being like, yeah, $3 million, no big deal. Whereas a couple of years ago, if I was talking about $3 million, I would be shaking in my boots. Because that money was just earmarked, I don't know. We don't have a contract yet. We don't know what the reporting is going to be like, but we have received substantial money from the state and the city as well. And those have pretty standard reporting that goes along with it. That's usually like a monthly outputs report. So like when we're given the money for a specific grant or program, we outline, you know, how many people is it going to serve? What is it going to provide? How is that? What are we going to do? Like, what's the point of what we're doing, and why are you giving us the money? And then we provide ongoing reports as well as like fiscal reports. So we'll send a report where the front half is like, we housed X people, Y people opened a bank account, Z number of people, you know, got a job or something. And then on the back end, the contract will say, you know, you spend this amount of money per month. And so we'll show like receipts and printouts of like exactly what we did with that money and how it went towards different line items for staffing and direct client aid and payment to our clients for their work, etc. So there's pretty, I mean, the reporting is extreme. And there's been times where we've actually turned down federal money because we were scared that we didn't have the administrative capacity to do the reporting associated with it. That being said, all of our work so far at the Esperanza community has been completely privately funded. Only in the last month or so have we been given some money from the state and from the county to go towards the build out of this complex and to run it. But that money again has not come in yet at all. It's only all just been pledged at this point. But we've already raised over $3 million privately towards this build out. So we're actually pretty close to the finish line on having it funded to be built and then run for 1 year. So did that answer your question?
Yes, and congratulations and good luck. And sometimes we just see the big headlines about trillion-dollar programs, and you've helped us understand how it really is being administered and how it reaches those people it's intended to help. And it's been very helpful. Thank you, Max.
Yeah, thank you.
Max, I have a question. Glenda
Sure.
Summers. What's inside of the structure? Do they have a commode? Do they have running water, or is it just a bed? What's it like?
So they're not big. They're 10 feet by 12 feet, and there is no water or restrooms. When I showed those like neighborhoods that are kind of in the U shape of 50, in the center of each of those is a big common area with kitchen, restroom, shower facilities. So inside, we're just giving, as people move in, we'll be giving people a small stipend of like a couple $100 that they can use to furnish it however they choose. But it's really pretty, what everything that we're building out there has to be this sort of confluence of dignified and welcoming, but also transition oriented. And transition oriented is sort of like a PC / soft way of saying not so comfortable that people stay there indefinitely, because this is supposed to be a shelter complex where people are coming in, staying for a few months, getting some traction under their feet and working with us to find a more long-term solution. So we don't want to, that's kind of why I keep making this joke about like, well, it's not a home in the Hamptons, but it beats a tent, you know? And so we're trying to, it's a stepping stone, or it's like training wheels essentially to getting people back into an apartment complex or a house.
Right.
Roberto?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
What percentage of those are veterans? And also, what are you planning to do for the veterans? I had a friend who wanted to do a veterans village, and he included a community center, but also training educations for trades, especially, so they would be trained to be able to get that. So involving education, jobs, excellent. What you're doing is excellent. You're providing the support that you agree you need. Excellent. Thank you very much. But those are the two questions. What percentage of veterans?
Sure. So I don't remember off the top of my head the percentage of people out at Esperanza right now that are veterans, and you don't want to watch me try to pull up that needs assessment that I talked about that we did last year. We did get that information, and it was I think it was somewhere around 10% of folks out there are veterans. We do, in your answer of what are we doing for veterans, we have a on the Workforce First program, We have one crew that's all veterans and we work with the VA to fill that client load. So we have one crew specifically dedicated to veterans in our work program. And we are talking with the VA about having a certain number of those units dedicated to as like VA beds for people who come seek help from the VA. But we haven't figured out how many units that's going to be, and that's kind of a matter of basically the deal is like if the VA sponsors the construction and upkeep of those units, we'll hold those beds for them. And so right now it's just a discussion of like how much capacity they have to do that. But I appreciate that question, and it is definitely, I mean, unhoused veterans is a big deal, and veterans are overrepresented in the unhoused population compared to their percentage of people just in the population in general that are veterans. So yeah, we have a good relationship with the VA, and we're working on including them in this project.
Thank you. Thank you for the great work we're doing. Great work.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think Ken has a question.
Susie, oops.
Ken?
Max?
Yeah.
Hey, Max, it's Ken Crone. You listed a ton of things that you're doing for them. Can you tell me if you require them to do anything? And mostly it's pick up trash. Do they help build these units? Do they do anything other than sit there and do and take? You know, it just seems like they ought to give something and back. And I just, do they do anything like that?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different like things at play here, and all of our services that we provide are optional. So nobody has to do any particular thing. Hypothetically, somebody could show up, move into one of these, and the agreement that they sign, the occupancy agreement, is worded this way very specifically for a reason. Says the occupancy is like, you have to be currently homeless, you have to be over 18, you have to agree to like do things to keep yourself and your neighbors safe. And then the last thing is be working towards finding stable housing off-site with a TOOF case manager. And so that is worded that way for a very specific reason, because everybody's capacity to self-actualize and self-stabilize is very different. And that's kind of when I was homeless and I kind of just decided to stop being homeless and popped right out into a job in an apartment. It's not because like I'm a better person and I'm a very spiritual person, but I don't think it had anything to do with God. I don't think it had anything to do with me being a good guy. I think it had a lot to do with me looking the way I do, and the fact that even though I was selling drugs on the street for almost 10 years, I was never even talked to once by police. I have no criminal record somehow. You know, so like there's some people out there who that is not the case for them at all. And so what we're trying to do is set up a place where everybody is doing to their own ability the work that they can do. That being said, we cannot find enough funding to fund all of the work that the people out there want to do. Virtually 100% of our clients have opted into case management, opted into substance use treatment, opted into mental health treatment. So everybody wants, when you put services in front of people in a way that is like inviting and dignified, they end up opting into them. And so in response to your question, technically no one really has to do anything other than like talk to their case manager every once in a while. But almost everybody almost everybody is going way above and beyond that and working on site or off site. I know tons of people. There are people who are like office managers that live out there, who are office managers for corporations and stuff, who have had such bad medical problems that they're homeless now. But who earn, you know, $40,000, $50,000 a year and have insurance, whose lives have just been destroyed and are living out of their car out where I work. I think I just got really tangential. But yeah, so the opportunity there is there for people to engage. And then also for us, the opportunity is there. The duration of your initial occupancy when you'll go into one of these is 6 months. And so after 6 months, we can reassess with that person and be like, hey, you're not doing what you said you're going to do. You are not working towards getting out of here and into stable housing. So we're going to ask you to leave and free this unit up for somebody who wants to take advantage of this opportunity. So that's kind of how we're dealing with that issue.
Molly, I think Molly had a question.
Good. I appreciate whoever is doing that because I'm not very good at mediating this, obviously.
Molly, unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I was interested in that block of land past the houses where it looked like there was a circular area and then some long buildings. I don't think I ever heard exactly what's happening with all that.
Yeah, I think I glossed right by that. I was trying to keep it short, but I'd love to. So the front area is going to have a community center, welcome center, where people can get their mail, have internet access. So a lot of this, and like case management offices, right now we have those things in the back of the site in a building that once we get the front built, we're going to move all of that kind of community center up front, and then the back will just be like admin offices. So that's where I'll hang out. That's where I currently am. But right now we have just everything all smushed into this one tiny building. So eventually the back will kind of be like administrative, and then the front will be a welcome center / community center where volunteer opportunities will happen, medical clinic, case management, and then just a safe place for people to be, where they can just come and get out of the elements and have internet and mail access. And that's going to be a drop-in center. The front building is not going to be specifically reserved for residents of the Esperanza community. It's also going to be just a drop-in center, for anybody who is either homeless or housing insecure, who wants to come through and access just kind of drop-in light case management help.
Good. Thank you.
Roberto, I think you had your hand up again.
Yeah, you brought up the question about the criminal records. You know, right now the criminal justice is trying to get jobs and so forth for these people that are coming out of prison, because it's very difficult for them to get back into the system. So talk about that. How can you help them? And I know we're talking to ACC College and some of the colleges that already have some training, because they are trying to target those to get training to get jobs. So talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, there's a lot of science that points to, you know, prison is a pipeline to homelessness. We just know this. So our big thing about getting people kind of reintegrated is a two-part process. And one is, if possible, expunging records. So our case managers are often able to work, and that is certainly outside my pay. I don't know how they do it, but our case managers are able to work in the system and often help people expunge records based on probably a lot of the work that they do with us. So, and that's another part of our Workforce First program, is that it's not they're not learning like a trade, right? They're essentially walking around picking up trash. So that's not, that part of it is not, it's not like a trade school, but what they're learning are the soft skills that many people have lost through incarceration, just living on the streets for 10 years. Maybe they never developed it. A lot of people who are raised in poverty go straight from like dropping out of high school and directly into whatever the family business is, which is not a legal trade. You know, like, I mean, we work with people who can't even read. And so what our workforce program is really working with people who need to relearn or learn for the first time these soft skills of like working with a group, don't fight while you work, show up to work on time, you know, which are things that to a lot of us are pretty obvious, but for a lot of people who have been living on the fringes, so to speak, it's not obvious and they have to completely relearn. So we are kind of going from like, we're working with people who are chronically homeless or who have had really, really severe issues. And then we're helping them get those soft skills. And then we're getting them in, we're developing we're developing pipelines into trade schools and other jobs. And then for some people, some of the people that we work with are so traumatized or physically disabled or have such bad mental health issues that a traditional 9-to-5 is just not gonna happen for them. And so those are the individuals who, when they're exiting the Workforce First program, we kind of get to this fork in the road where we're like, let's get real for a minute. Are you gonna be able to go on and hold down a job, or do we need to find you like the appropriate Social Security? And so we don't exit somebody before they have one of those two things locked in.
Thank you.
I think Kit, did you have a question?
I'm sorry.
Can't hear you, Kit.
Susie had a question, but she had something she had to go do. The question was, how well are you able to integrate with the larger community mental health operations?
So I think that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked it, because I want to be very clear that we don't do all of this stuff alone. A lot of this stuff is partnered. So like I talked about how we have a work crew that's all veterans, and there's many other, so like the on-site mental health care is not run by us. We built the physical place and then got in a group called Integral Care, that's the local mental health authority. They come out and offer those services. So I would say that we're so able to integrate that we aren't even doing it. They're just doing it. And similarly, like the on-site medical clinic, again, we built the place and then reached out, and Dell Medical School runs it one day, and then another group called Community Care runs it another day. So we're, a lot of the services we are physically providing, case management, all the work opportunity, building the structures and maintaining the site. But then we're also functioning as a coordinator and bringing in, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We never were supposed to be a medical group. So like, we're just bringing in people, and with food access, we've never done food access. So we built a big kitchen and brought in another group called Free Lunch to run it. So we're very collaborative, and we're very quick to realize our lane and realize what we don't know. And as soon as we realize that we don't know something, but it needs to happen, we just find the right people who do know.
We're getting close to 1:30, so Mac, I think you've got the last question.
Oh boy, no pressure. Max, on your master plan there, I saw a lot of permanent structures, and I wondered, this is kind of a two-part question. How long is your lease with TxDOT? Or because looks like something that could go on for a long time, if not indefinitely. And then, do you actually have a timeline? Is homelessness a problem that will always be here, or is there kind of an end game to solve homelessness somehow magically for the world?
Okay, everybody. Well, you're not getting out of here at 1:30 because you asked like 4 questions.
We've got 2 minutes.
So the lease is 10 years with 10-year renewal options ongoing. And I'm confident that the state will continue to renew the lease as long as the need is there and as long as the output is showing that the investment is worth it. And I'm confident that all of those things will be met long before 10 years when we renegotiate our lease. And then as far as your question about, it sometimes feels like what we're doing is putting a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound and like, what is the source of homelessness and how do we address that instead of just continuing to address the symptom, which is people living in tents. And so I will answer that as best I can. There was not really homelessness in the United States the way that we see it today until the 1980s. There was a lot of homelessness during the Great Depression for a very short amount of time. And then when the New Deal went into effect and we built public housing, that sort of eradicated it. All of a sudden, there were enough houses because they were subsidized and there was suddenly no more people on the streets. I mean, not no more, of course, there are always going to be small groups of people who like slip through the social safety network and for whatever reason end up homeless. But post New Deal, when subsidized housing first went into effect, there was the number of homeless people was much lower than it had been before. And it stayed very, very, very low until the 80s when cut budgets to subsidized housing was substantially cut. It wasn't totally eradicated. There's still subsidized housing. It's all over Austin. But it was cut very substantially. And at the same time, mental health budgets at a national level were cut very substantially. And that began the snowball that is now picking up size and speed and we're looking at today. And so the issue of homelessness will always be a crisis the way that it is right now until there are as many homes as people and that the homes are actually truly affordable to everybody. And that, I don't know why I'm doing this weird thing with my pen right now. I'm like, that's not going to happen anytime soon for a variety of reasons. It's going to cost a ton of money. It's going to take a ton of legislation, and a ton of people are going to suddenly have to be willing to let people that they don't really want to move into their neighborhoods move into their neighborhoods. And I'm sure that Alan Graham talked about how hard it's been for him to find places to build his developments, or maybe he didn't, but it's a thing that I've seen the guy speak a lot, and him and I have spoken a lot, and it's something that he talks about a lot, is it's really hard to find places to build affordable housing. Nobody wants it in their neighborhood. And so between all of the legislation, all of the investment, and all of the sort of social, all the social issues around affordable housing, this issue is not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but that's kind of the situation. And so what we need to do is to create safe and stable and dignified places for people to be while they're in what is essentially a bottleneck right now, trying to get in, there's X amount of homeless people and Y amount of deeply, truly affordable housing, and X is like way bigger than Y. And so everybody's in this bottleneck trying to get into these spots, and people are dying in that bottleneck. And so we need to create these safe and stable environments for people to be, and that's our work. And then at the exact same time, there's MLF and Alan Graham who are building places for these people to go through our shelter complex into, but they can't build them fast enough. People will die waiting for them to build. And then lastly, the highest tier is people at the policy level who are trying to kind of get into a place where there's the funding needed for to have enough deeply affordable housing that eventually places like the Esperanza community may not be necessary, but that is probably a very long ways away because of the political and social arena that we're in.
Well, I think it's time that we're going to need to wrap it up right now.
Sure.
Can you stay around a little bit if anybody else has any questions?
Yeah, I've got time. And I also, in the chat, I put in my email address and our website, and anybody who like has to go but has more questions, or anybody who's interested in coming out and seeing kind of where we're at right now is more than welcome to follow up with me or just go to our website. And
well, thank you so much. It's been very, very, very informative.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate you.
Tommy, will you tell us about next week's program, please?
We have a group that has started probably 12, 15 years ago. It started when I was doing the travel around and visiting other clubs, and ran across a young lady, Chelsea Elliott. Chelsea was in Hawaii at that time, and she had turned around completely the entire legitimate legalized system in Hawaii for each of the islands that were there. She was able to get required vision screening for all students, and they had none of it up until that point. When she came back here to Austin, she started a group that is called Half Helen. Chelsea is blind in one eye and deaf in one ear. So as you might guess, that's Helen Keller. And so she says that got a lot of attention. She has raised over $500,000 towards a mobile unit that allows her then to go into communities and supplement other screening and testing. She has 2 physicians now on her staff that actually will do prescriptions, evaluations, prescriptions, and she also will provide glasses. They're a little bit like the Esler group that was here several years, but finally pulled back and went back to Dallas, Texas. The lady coming will talk to us about what Half Helen does, who they're involved with. We are associated with them, and that we will be sharing some of their opportunities. We'll be doing the screening before they do the actual legal medical examinations. And so we've been invited, when the COVID thing is under somewhat control and we're comfortable and safe with it, that we would join them in several events where we would do the pre-screening, much as we did for the Coach for Kids. If you all recall, we would screen about 300 folks, and we would send probably 50 or 60 over to Esler in the next trailer, and they would then do a prescription and eyeglasses. She's going to talk to us about where they are. They had a grand opening and a ribbon cutting on her trailer, and they're gangbusters, and they're all young ladies that are driven to do the right thing at the right time for our community. So I think you'll enjoy knowing what they do. That's called Half Helen.
Ann, are you still available? Well, somebody had some questions about what time to show up tomorrow. We need to show up this afternoon at 4:30 if you can help this afternoon setting up. And then I think Ann wanted us there at about 8 o'clock in the morning. Is that correct?
Yeah, 8:30. Yeah.
8:30. And if you don't have a shirt, if you're a volunteer and if you don't have a shirt, we'll try to have one for you. Does anybody else have any information along those lines? Oh, and bring your gloves and that type of thing this afternoon.
And a hammer.
And a hammer, okay. And an ice chest if you volunteer to bring an ice chest. Well, because of this afternoon, we scheduled our board meeting till next week because we've got a lot going on this afternoon. Does anybody else have anything that needs to be said before we close?
I just had a question. Max, could I have your phone number? It's not possible.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
I'm not very good in computers, but anyway.
Oh, well, yeah. Can I just tell it to you then? Would that be better?
Yes.
It's 503-719-2339. And I have Mark and Mac's email address. And so maybe after this, I'll go ahead and just like give them my contact info and like our website and some more materials that they can send to everybody, and then whoever's interested in, you know, it's kind of choose your own adventure. If you want to call me or come out or whatever you want to do, we're always willing to talk more about what we do, and we'd love to have any or all of you out at some point. So I'll be sure to provide contact information for anybody who wants to do any kind of follow-up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, if that's all, then I'm going to close this meeting. What?
Question.
I'm sorry, I can't understand. I know somebody was trying to say something, but I didn't hear. Oh, Mac, did you see?
No, it wasn't me. I was waving goodbye. Sorry, I gotta go.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll see some of you out this afternoon and some of you tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, for your support. And oh, Max, please join us. Feel free to join us anytime. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'll follow up, like I said, with Mac and Mark, and we'll take it from there. Hopefully this won't be the last time that we see each other.
Okay, great. Well, then I'm going to close this meeting. Thank you so much, everybody.
Y'all have a good one. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
Good program. Thanks.
Good.
Great program.